गुरुर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः। गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्परं वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः। श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम। We'll spend a few minutes singing the beautiful Ganga Sutra. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's a very, very beautiful hymn glorifying Ganga Maya, Mother Ganga. Okay. So if you don't know to sing it, you can clap along. Okay. Devi Sureshwari Bhagavati Gange Tribhuvan Tarini Karala Tarange Shankara Mauli Vihari Vimale Mama Matira Sambhavavadata Hari Hello everyone. Good evening. It's so nice to be here with all of you. A very happy Pitra Paksh as well. Tonight is night 2 of Pitra Paksh. We are seeing over the next few days this wonderful, fascinating story of the Mahabharata and some of the life lessons that we can take from it as well. The Mahabharata, someone, I'm not sure who it was mentioning earlier that just like the Ramcharitmanas, just like the Ramayana, the Mahabharata is also an itihasa. It is a historical scripture that is meant to teach us the same thing that our Vedas teach. The main purpose of the Vedas is to teach us dharma, what is right and wrong and our duty and all of that. Dharma is not a word that can be translated, but as a loose translation we say goodness and duty, like that. And it also teaches us about the greatest goal of life, which is mukti, moksha, to realize that there is nothing but Brahman in this universe. That is the teaching of the Vedas. To make that practical, applicable, we have itihasas, we have Mahabharata, we have Ramayana. Everyone here is very familiar with the Ramayana, but the Mahabharata is not so frequently studied as Ramayana is. So many reasons may be there because of which that is. One is nobody has yet, as far as I know, written the Mahabharata in such beautiful, simple dialect as Tulsidas did for the Ramcharitmanas, in a way in which it can be sung and studied so simply. We don't have that for the Mahabharata. Mahabharata is 100,000 verses. The biggest text you can find in any tradition, in any literature. It is so huge and so magnificent that it is said that there is nothing that exists in this world which has not been addressed in the Mahabharata. And if there is something that is not in the Mahabharata, you can rest assured that it is not in this world. That is how wonderful this Mahabharata is. I mentioned yesterday that there is a key difference between the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. The Ramayana is a text that presents to us the ideal, the adarsha. It presents the greatest, every character in the Ramayana serves as a role model for us. They're so great, so ideal, so perfect in everything that they do. Like Bhagavan Ram, Bharatji, all the brothers, all the mothers. Yesterday I was mentioning Ravana is the perfect villain. You can't find a more ideal and perfect villain than Ravana. So everybody in the Ramayana is ideal in their own way. However, when you come to the Mahabharata, Mahabharata is called Yathartha, meaning the Mahabharata presents life as it is. We don't find people who are only good or people who are only bad in the world. We are not only good or only bad. We have a mix of the two. And so what happens in the Mahabharata is you'll see every single character that we meet has both good and bad. Now if everybody has both good and bad, what is it that determines if someone is good or bad? Because there are good characters and there are bad characters in the Mahabharata. So this is something I leave you all to think about. If goodness and weakness or negativities exist in all of us, what is it that defines us as good or bad? Okay. Now, yesterday we had started to see the story of the Mahabharata. Actually, it is impossible to study the entire story. So what we are doing is we're studying the main storyline. The main storyline is about the Pandavas and the Kauravas, names that I'm sure you would be familiar with. However, it starts much before the Pandavas and the Kauravas, about 3 generations before them. We saw yesterday there was a great king called Shantanu, and he fell in love with Ganga Maya. Ganga Devi had come as a being and he fell in love with her. And we saw their backstory and we saw how together they had 8 children The first 7 she drowned in the river before he could even see. And when she was drowning the 8th child, he stopped her and he said, "What kind of mother are you? What kind of thing are you doing?" And she explained that these 8 children were actually vasus, beings from a different loka. And I was freeing them from a curse that they had to be born as human beings. But this 8th child, he had prarabdha, fate had it that he could not be released from the curse when he was born. He has to live a long life yet. And so you stopped him from going back to his loka. And when she explains that what she was doing was not an inhuman act of killing innocent children, it had a deeper significance. That story is a reminder to us that we're very quick to judge things that we see and situations that we see in the world, but it's a reminder to us that there is always a backstory. Like that, every single episode in the Mahabharata that is presented has a backstory, and every backstory presented has a purpose. Okay? So there are many names that come up in the Mahabharata. Now I started this story yesterday. It's a tough thing to try to recap in 5 minutes so that everyone knows what's going on and we can still continue with this story. So let's see how I can recap quickly. The 8th child of Ganga Maya and this great king called Shantanu, his name was Devavrata, and his mother Ganga had taken him to her loka. She had taken him to Svarga, and she trained him to be an ideal king. All the things that kings need to learn, political science, warfare, even spiritual education, all of that she trained him so well in. And when he was about 16, she brought him back to Prithvilok, back to our world, and she handed him over to his father. And she said, "Here is the perfect heir for your throne." And so Shantanu spends a few years with this wonderful son that he has got. And it so happens that one day he falls in love with another woman. And that woman is a fisherman's daughter. Her name is Satyavati. And her father's condition is that I will only allow you cannot marry my daughter because it is written in her destiny that her children will become kings. And you already have a son who is going to become a king. So if you marry my daughter, whatever children she has, they will not inherit the throne. Therefore, you cannot marry her. And so he becomes so despondent hearing that he cannot marry her because he's not going to ask his son to relinquish the throne. His son finds out, Devavrata finds out that this is the cause of his father's sadness, and he goes to that fisherman and he takes a vrata, a vow. Such a terrible vow he takes over there. And he renounces the throne of Hastinapur. He says, "You want your daughter's children to be the heirs? I renounce my right to the throne. I will never sit on the throne. Your daughter's children will be the heirs." And he says, "Well, that's very nice, but what if when your children come around, they're not so selfless and noble like you?" And he takes a second vrata, a second vow, and he says, "I will remain a brahmachari for the rest of my life. I will never get married." And the intensity of that vow is so much that from the Akash you hear the Devatas screaming, "Bhishma, Bhishma." Such a terrible, intense vow it was that he took, that from that day he became known as the great Bhishma. He also took one final vow, and he said, whoever is sitting on the throne of Hastinapur, the kingdom that he belonged to, I will be loyal to that person. I will always serve the throne. So see what Bhishma did? He gave up everything. He gave up power. He gave up the happiness of pleasure. He gave up the potential to be a wonderful king. Everything for the happiness of his father. Instantly, effortlessly, he gave that up. When his father heard this, his father was devastated. My child is just about 20 years old. He has his whole life ahead of him. I have lived my life, I've had a wife, I've had a child, but the vow had been taken. And now, with all of the fruits of his tapas, he grants his son a boon. And he says, I grant you Ichcha Marana. Means you will be able to choose the time of your death. No one can kill you unless you are ready to die. You get to choose the time of your death. The interesting thing around this is about how our karma comes to us. Bhishma was the 8th Vasu, that 8th child he was. He was the mastermind behind the plan that got them cursed in the first place. And he was destined to live a very long life as an ordinary being here on earth. And it so happened that such a long life that no one could even kill him now. See how karma finds the person exactly as it is supposed to? This is a very important principle that is reminded to us in Mahabharata, that we can never escape the law of karma. In fact, unless we realize the self, obviously. But there's a wonderful verse in the Mahabharata along these lines. I'd like us to sing it and we'll see what it says. I'll sing Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. You all please sing the chorus along, okay? Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, This beautiful shloka says, just as among thousands of cows, if there was, you can imagine, thousands of cows in a field, that calf, that baby calf, will go and find its own mother in that crowd of cows. In the same way, herd of cows. In that same way, no matter where we are, the karma that comes from someone, the results of that karma find that person without fail, without mistake, without fail, just like a calf can find its mother amidst thousands of cows. Our karma, our action, the results of our action will find the doer of that action. And so Bhishma, Devavrata, was destined to live a long life. And what a life he had to live. We will see how it goes. So, Shantanu, King Shantanu, Bhishma's father, he gets married to Satyavati, the girl because of whom Bhishma had given up all his power and pleasure and everything. And they lived some very happy years together. With time they had 2 children. Their names were Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. 2 sons they had. Time went on and Shantanu passed away. Because of age, he became old and he passed away. When he passed away, Vichitravirya was still quite young. Chitrangada was a youth. And so Chitrangada became the heir, the Yuvraj it's called, the crown prince he became. And because he was too young to actually rule, Bhishma was administrating in his place. This Chitrangada, he was a great prince. He had all kingly qualities also. But he had a lot of pride. And you know, when you have pride, like I told you, no character in Mahabharata is perfect, right? So he was very proud. Well, it so happens that there was a Gandharva, a musical celestial being with the same name, Chitrangada. And he heard about this worldly Chitrangada. And he said, what? This Chitrangada thinks he's so great? How can there be a commoner with the same name as me? This Gandharva thought the name was only for him. So he went and he challenged earthly Chitrangada to a duel. He said, only one of us can survive with this name. And so in Kurukshetra, that same battlefield where the great Mahabharata war was fought, right there they had a battle. And in that battle, or in that duel, Shantanu's son Chitrangada lost his life. And so now, the heir to the throne was dead. Well, Satyavati was very sad, but what had to happen now? Vichitravirya was made the next Yuvraj, the next king. But he was very, very young. So for many years, Bhishma is the one who actually kept ruling in his place. Now, imagine the age difference between them. Bhishma would have been like his father. And so he actually took care of and brought up Vichitravirya just like a father would have. And when Vichitravirya was of age, Bhishma was thinking, well, now it is time to get him married, because that's what parents think. So he thinks about his marriage. And at that time, there was a Swayamvar taking place. Swayamvar was the way in which princesses chose their suitors. Like Sitaji had a Swayamvar, right? So there was a Swayamvar in Kashi for 3 princesses going on. And usually the tradition was that these Kashi princesses used to be offered to the kings of Hastinapur. But this time, they did not get any invitation. Nobody in Hastinapur received an invitation to even come to the Swayamvar of these princesses of Kashi. So Bhishma took offense to the fact that they were not invited. And he said, it doesn't matter that we're not invited, I'm going to go and I'm going to get those 3 wonderful princesses for this brother of mine, Vichitravirya. And so he goes and he storms into this Swayamvar that is happening in Kashi. Now there are so many princes and so many kings from all over. And they see Bhishma and they start to mock him. They say, oh look, he said he was going to be a brahmachari, but see what happens when there are beautiful princesses in front. You forget your vows, he forgot his promises to his father, now he's changing his mind. And Bhishma in a thundering voice said, I am not here for myself, I'm here to take these princesses for my brother Vichitravirya. Let me see who stops me. And before anyone can do anything, he takes these 3 princesses and he puts them on his chariot and he's getting ready to leave. Now, I should mention, in those times, it was culturally acceptable, not scripturally acceptable, culturally acceptable for kings and princes to go to another kingdom and take the princess to their kingdom. And if they were able to do so successfully without being challenged, without being stopped, without being defeated, the princess or the queen belonged to them. Thank God that's not the case anymore, but that is what it was at that time. So what he was doing was not against dharma. He was doing what was in line with dharma. And so he takes these three princesses and he's about to leave. And everybody knows what a wonderful Kshatriya warrior Bhishma is. So most people are scared to challenge him. But there is one king who comes and tries to stop him. His name is Shalva. King Shalva comes and tries to stop Bhishma from taking these princesses. And in a fight that ensues, Bhishma is so dexterous with his weapons that he kills the charioteer of this king. He breaks his chariot, and Shalva is left chariotless and totally defeated. And Bhishma is like, okay, I spare you your life, you go. And like this, he takes the princesses and they go back to Hastinapura. But when they reach Hastinapur, Satyavati is overjoyed to see such wonderful daughters-in-law. Vichitravirya is also so happy to see the princesses that he has just been handed on a golden platter. And everyone is overjoyed. These princesses look like moons. They're so beautiful and so lovely. And then suddenly, things cannot go smooth all the time. Some drama has to happen. So from a very quiet little voice says, excuse me, can I say something? A soft voice from the back of the room. It happens to be one of the princesses. Her name is Amba. Actually, I'll tell you the names one time. Amba, Ambika, Ambalika. These were the three princesses. If you did not grow up hearing these names, they will make your head spin. There are so many names in Mahabharata. Amba, the first princess, she speaks up and she says, I would like to say something. What would you want to say? She says, actually, I am in love with someone else. You know that king who came and tried to stop you? That King Shalva? I am in love with him and he is in love with me. And I had already made up my mind that at the Swayamvar I was going to choose him to be my husband. And Swayamvar literally means you choose your own guru. So she was allowed to do that. Now, what a big dilemma. Bhishma says, if you have given your heart to somebody else, how can you marry him? So, in consultation with the Brahmanas and his mother and all of that, they have a discussion and they reach a conclusion that the best thing to do is to send Amba back to that king because he loves her, she loves him. Why should they come between them? And so she gets sent in a chariot very royally and nicely to King Shalva. When she gets there, we have to digress a little and hear her story. It's the thing in Mahabharata is every person's story is connected to something else in the main story. So while we're on her topic, let us see her story. Well, Amba goes to him and she says, I told Bhishma what happened and he told me, he sent me to you and so I'm here to marry you. And King Shalva looks at her and says, I am not going to accept my enemy's charity. He fought me, he defeated me, he humiliated me, he took you away, and now he's sending you back to me? I don't want you, you please go. And she thinks, what? What are you talking about? And he says, look, the law of dharma says, and he quotes dharma, he says, the dharmic thing is, he held your hand, he put you in the chariot, he fought with me, he defeated me, and he rightfully took you away. So according to that principle, he should be marrying you, not me. So now Amba thinks, well, what is this? So now she goes back to Bhishma. He's not a Bhishma Pitamaha at this time, he's just Bhishma. And she goes back to Bhishma, and Bhishma says, what are you doing here? Didn't you go to Shalva? Why are you back? And she said, well, when I went there, he taught me Dharma Shastra. He taught me Dharma Shastra and he sent me back. And he explained to me that actually you are the one who is supposed to marry me. So marry me. Now Bhishma looks at her and he says, my dear Amba, I am sorry that this has happened to you, but I have taken a vrata, a vow to remain a brahmachari my entire life. I am not getting married for any reason. Now who would you be angry with at this point? Bhishma or Shalva? The person who you love, who you expected to accept you, but he put his pride in the way and rejected you? Or the one who says he cannot marry you because of a vow, and you don't even love him? Well, Amba developed the strongest imaginable hatred for Bhishma. No thought also about Shalva from this moment, but the intensity of hatred that she had for Bhishma was something that if you want to learn to have a grudge against someone, you learn from her. That is the intensity of her grudge. So now what did she do? She went to the forest and she started to do intense tapas. And her tapas was so intense that all the rishis over there noticed the intensity of her tapas, and they were wondering, what can we do? This is a sad, terrible situation. It so happened that her grandfather came around that time, and he said, fine, in discussion with the rishis over there, he said, you know what, I am going to go to Bhishma's guru Parashuram, who taught him warfare, and I am going to tell him to tell Bhishma to marry you, and he cannot say no to his guru. So Parashuram ji is invited. The same Parashuram ji who we meet in Ramayana, Avatar of Bhagavan. He is Bhishma's warfare guru. And so Bhishma is summoned by his guru Parashuram, and Parashuram says, look, you need to marry this girl according to the situation. And Bhishma looks at him and says, but Guruji, I have taken a vow that I will never get married. How can you ask me to? I took my vow in your name also. I swore on you that I would never get married. What are you asking me to do? And the Guru says, no, but this is an exceptional circumstance. And he refuses. He tells his Guru, no, absolutely not. I will not break my vow. And so the Guru says, well, then you have two choices. I will curse you or you fight with me. Now he thinks, well, this Guru that I love so much, the last thing that I want from him is a curse. So he says, fine, I will fight with you. So they get ready for a duel. And before they start to fight, see the beauty in this whole thing. Bhishma gets down from his chariot and he goes and he does pranams to Parashuramji, who he's about to fight. And he says, please bless me to be victorious. He's asking his opponent, but who is also his guru, please bless me to be victorious. And his guru says, well, I mean, you did a very noble thing, that is wonderful, but you're fighting with me, so I cannot bless you to be victorious. But I bless you to fight in the best way possible. Go. Like that. So now this fight between the two starts, between Guru and Shishya. And because Bhishma is so skilled, Parashuram cannot defeat him. And remember, Bhishma cannot be killed, right? He has that boon where he cannot be killed. This battle goes on for 28 days. I mean, they stop at night and then they start the next day, that's how it went. 28 whole days, this battle between Guru and Shishya continued. Finally, Bhishma was tipped off one day to use an astra that would destroy the whole world. And he was about to use that astra. And at that time, all the rishis, no, Naraji came and stopped him. And he says, what are you doing? This will destroy the world. Please don't use this. Revoke this astra and surrender. Surrender to your guru. And so, well, Bhishma listens and he revokes the astra and he surrenders to Parashuramji. And his guru Parashuram says, you know, you are the greatest of all fighters. I couldn't defeat you. He admits that he couldn't defeat him. And so he turns to Amba now and he says, my dear Amba, I am so sorry. I could not convince him to marry you. Now you imagine Amba's thirst for revenge. It intensifies. It doesn't stop, it intensifies. And now her wish has changed and she doesn't want to marry Bhishma anymore. Now she wants him dead. So the one person who can't be killed by anybody, she wants that person killed now. And so she starts to do intense tapas. And Shanmukha, the son of Shivji, Kartikeya, he notices her tapas. And he comes and he gives her a lotus mala. And he says, whoever wears this mala, that person is the one who is going to be the cause of Bhishma's death. And so she gratefully takes this mala. And she goes to every single king that she can find. And she asks every king to wear this mala. But because Bhishma is so noble and so powerful, every single king refuses to wear the mala. She has in her hand what is going to be the cause of his death, and no one wants to wear it. And so she's at Drupada's court one day, King Drupada's court, and she has asked him and he has just refused. He said if it was anybody except Bhishma, I would have taken it. But this is Bhishma, I cannot. And in fury and anger, she throws the garland up and it goes and it falls on a pillar. And now everyone is scared to touch this garland, this mala, because whoever touches it, there's big trouble going to happen. And so what he does is he puts guards around this mala, and it is guarded now day and night to make sure nobody touches it. Because of her hatred, she goes on to do incredible tapas. She still hasn't gotten what she wanted. Bhishma is still alive. And someone tells her to do tapas for Lord Shiva. You know, he's called Ashutosh, easily pleased, right? And so she starts to do tapas for Bhagavan Shiva. Bhagavan Shiva finally comes. And he says to her, okay, fine. In your next life, you yourself will kill Bhishma. You yourself will be the cause of Bhishma's death. And she says, but what good is that? I won't be able to taste the revenge. I'm not going to remember my next life. I don't want that deal. No deal. And he says, no. I grant you the privilege that you will be able to remember this life in your next life. So you will remember that you are the one killing Bhishma and you will know why. And so she is very happy at that time. I mean, this is the best deal she can get. She's tried for so many years, and this is the best deal she can get. So now she gives up her life in Agni, and in due time, she is reborn as a child of Drupada. But and her name is Nasi. She's born as a woman. And in that time, women were not allowed to fight. And in fact, warriors would not fight a woman. So she was born a woman. And her name was Shikandi. And when she was young one day, she went and took that mala, which was in Drupada's court, who is now her father, and she put it on herself. And Drupada was scared. He said, what have you done? And she said, no, I am the cause of Bhishma's death. I have taken birth for the sole purpose of wearing this mala. You just relax and leave it to me. She says this to him. And then she does more tapas now in this life. And she ends up asking a yaksha for the boon to switch from a woman to a man. You know, gender change and all of that. It is there in Ramayana. She changes, she's born a woman and then she becomes a man. And the name stays Shikhandi. You might know that name, Shikhandi. This Shikhandi becomes instrumental in Bhishma's fall during the Mahabharata war. When we get there, we will see how. But this is the backstory of this Amba. Okay? All of this could have been averted if at that time when he was about to put her in the chariot, she opened her mouth and said, "No, I have already pledged myself to somebody else." But see how karma works itself out? Look how she ended up there. Anyways, just take a moment and reflect with me on how she spent her life. You know, there was hatred in her heart. She did so much tapas. Years and years and years and years and years of tapas. Even if she did tapas, you know, Parvati Ma had done so much tapas in Ramayana when you read. So tapas is a great thing. But what did Parvati Ma get in the end? She got Bhagavan Shiva. What did Amba get? An intensification of hatred. That's all. That is like, a very, very, very basic version of an example would be, you meet the president and he says, ask for anything you want. You can ask for like acres and acres and acres of land. And you say, please make sure my neighbor doesn't get any land. You could ask for anything. And you ask for the most trivial thing. She had darshan of Kartikeyaji. She had darshan of Bhagavan Shiva. And instead of her life being transformed, she used all of that for her hatred to intensify. See what happens because she held on to that grudge? What would happen if she had forgiven Bhishma? What would have happened if she let go? She wasted 2 lifetimes behind one grudge. Amba's story is a reminder to us to ask ourselves, we may be putting in effort. It may look like spiritual things that we're doing, but really speaking, where is that effort taking us? What is the purpose of that effort? Is it going to grant us something noble? Or is it just going to end in us perpetuating our negativities? She wasted 2 lifetimes and she ended up none the better for it. So ask yourself, are you like Amba? See, there will be an Amba in all of us. A part of us will be there that wants to hold on to grudges and see people who did wrong things to us suffer and be the cause of their destruction. But where does it take us? Imagine what she could have used her time for. She could have gotten moksha with all the tapas that she did. If she didn't want moksha, she could have gotten so much siddhi. She could have developed creativity. So many things she could have done with her life. What do we do with our life when a grudge enters? We study Amba to remind ourselves of how not to become. Okay, so this was Amba. Now let us go back to the other 2 sisters, Ambika and Ambalika. 2 more sisters, but they were very happy to marry Vichitravirya. And Vichitravirya was also very happy to marry them. And so he was not very... You know, some people naturally have that political air in them. They're naturally politically inclined. And then there are others who are just totally not inclined to politics at all. Well, Vichitravirya, even though he was supposed to be the king, he did not have an iota of interest in anything to do with the kingdom. So namesake only, he was going to be the king, but really, it was Bhishma who had to run everything. And so he would just enjoy his time with his wives. It so happened that he also ended up dying early. So Vichitravirya, at a young age, also died. So now Satyavati had 2 sons, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. Chitrangada died because of the Gandharva, and Vichitravirya died also because of consumption. Actually, he had died, right? Now nothing could be done, and Hastinapur's throne was left without an heir. So Satyavati is sad that she has lost her son, But as a queen, she's also worried what is going to happen to the kingdom, because the kingdom needs an heir. And so, first she tells Bhishma to take the throne. And he says, but mother, what is wrong with you? How can you ask me that? You know my vow. And then she tries one step further. And she says, we are at a time of, it's a constitutional crisis. A kingdom must have an heir. A kingdom cannot not have an heir. And the priority for the lineage should be that the lineage should remain within the family. That is how it used to be at that time. There's something called apadharma, a dharma that kicks in or becomes applicable in extreme, unforeseen extreme times. Normally it would not be considered as dharma, but in circumstances which are just beyond normal, this normal adharma suddenly becomes dharma in the certain situation. So one of the things that used to happen at that time is if there wasn't an heir, the brother of the wives would be permitted to give a child to the wife so that the lineage would continue. So she said, you have to do that for your brother. And Bhishma said, no, but I am Akhanda Brahmachari. I am not going to do that. And he says, mother, you have to find some other way. I'm not going to do this. And so Satyavati is thinking now. And she tells Bhishma a story. She says, wait, I have something to tell you. So now, don't lose the main thread because we are entering another backstory. Satyavati's backstory. It is connected because it is crucial in the next part of the story. Satyavati was born of an Apsara. She was the daughter of an Apsara, a celestial dancer. But she was born through a fish. And as a result of that, she smelled fishy, literally. Smelled fishy all the time. And she was a fisherman's daughter. Well, one day she was taking across on the boat a great rishi called Parashar Rishi. And he said to her, according to the divine lineup of the planets, if the two of us have a child right now, that child is going to be the one that saves society in the future. This child is going to be an essential part of history. And so, a rishi is saying that we need to have a child right now. A strange thing, but she goes along with it. And after that, her fishy smell goes away, and she ends up having this divine fragrance about her. And the child that is born to this Parashar Rishi and Satyavati is none other than our Bhagavan Veda Vyasaji. You just imagine what the world would be if Bhagavan Veda Vyasaji was not born. Unfathomable, actually, for what he has done for Sanatana Dharma, what he has done for humanity. You cannot imagine a world without him today. And so she says, I have this child from before I got married. But he's not an ordinary child. He's a rishi now, And so she says, he had promised me that whenever I think of him, he will come. So I can call him, she thinks. Before we see what happens, this interesting turn of events of Satyavati, it has some nice symbolism. We are all born with a smell of negative vasanas. Do we not have, imagine if people could see all of our thoughts, or if our thoughts suddenly developed a smell. Imagine all your thoughts had a smell. Good thoughts had a nice fragrance, and bad thoughts smelled like the garbage dump. Now, what would happen when people came near you? They can smell your thoughts. Will you smell nice? Or will you smell like a walking garbage dump? Well, the truth is we are all born with negativities, correct? We are all born with negative vasanas, negative tendencies, and so we all have this fishy smell inside of us. When we come in contact with our Guru or with Bhagavan, in satsang, that negative vasana stink gets transformed into the fragrance of samskaras, into a fragrance of all positive qualities. And so, and out of that satsang comes from that kind of mind the child of wisdom. And that is the symbolism behind this section of the story. So now Satyavati summons Veda Vyasaji, who is her child, and she explains to him the situation, and she says, this is apatkal, this is the extraordinary time, and I need you to give children to these two daughters-in-law of mine so that the lineage can continue. And he says, well, I am okay with it, but they have to be okay with it too. And so she speaks to Ambika and Ambalika, and well, everyone agrees to what has to be done because of dharma. Well, now what happens is, when Veda Vyasaji goes to Ambika, because of his appearance, remember he's sitting and meditating up in the Himalayas somewhere, he doesn't look like Vichitra Virya in any way, and so Ambika sees him and she gets scared by his rugged appearance, and she shuts her eyes really tight, and the child is conceived in the process when she has closed her eyes with intensity. And Veda Vyasaji tells Satyavati that you're going to get a grandchild from her, but that grandchild is going to be blind because she closed her eyes. The effect of that is going to have some consequence. So now Satyavati is thinking, well, that's not good news. And so she says, well, let's try again with Ambalika. And so this time when Ambalika sees him, she doesn't close her eyes, but she becomes pale with fright. And so the next child ends up being born pale and sickly. So first child that is born, that happens to be Dhritarashtra. That is the child of Ambika. Second child that is born is Pandu. Pandu is child of Ambalika. And now Satyavati tells Veda Vyasaji, one more time try, because we need a good heir for the throne. And so Veda Vyasaji agrees to try one more time. But Ambika is so scarred by what had happened that she doesn't actually go to Veda Vyasaji. She sends her maid servant. And her maid servant is the one who ends up conceiving the third child. And so now Veda Vyasaji comes to Satyavati and he says, the third child that is going to come is going to be an incarnation of Dharma itself. He is going to be brilliant. He is going to be an embodiment of noble values and virtues and intelligence. But he is going to be the son of a maid servant. And because of that, he is never going to be allowed to sit on the throne. So now Satyavati says, well, let's try again. And he says, no. Even in extraordinary circumstances, you cannot do this kind of thing. 3 is the limit. In this kind of dharma, 3 is the limit. And so he says, it is what it is. And like that, he says, please don't call me again. Don't ask me to do this kind of thing again. And Veda Vyasaji leaves. So now you have a young Dhritarashtra who is blind, who is supposed to be king but can't, because you can have a president leading the country who is blind. It is not possible for the leader of the country to be blind. And so Pandu is made king. But Dhritarashtra always has in him this thought that I should have been the king. And he has this inside nagging, what is it? Not hatred, but a feeling of it's not fair. Like justice has not, like this is unjust what has happened to me, you know? And so he feels this bitterness would be the right word. He feels bitter about what happened for his entire life. And you'll see how it plays out and everything. Anyways, now these two children are little, so who's ruling the kingdom? Bhishma is still ruling the kingdom. See the irony of this whole situation. Bhishma was the heir. First of all, an heir was born, and that heir was killed the moment it was born. Right? Child 1 was killed, drowned the moment it was born. Child 2, child 3, child 4, child 5, child 6, 7 children who were supposed to be the heirs were drowned the moment that they were born. The 8th child, who was trained to be the heir of Hastinapur, what happened? He took these Bhishma vows, these terrible vows, and he could not be the heir. Then Chitrangala became the heir, but then he was killed by a Gandharva. Then Vichitravirya became the heir, but he also passes away. Then Dhritarashtra is supposed to be the heir, but now he's blind. Then Pandu is supposed to be the heir, and Bhishma finally thinks, okay, now I can relax. He's still young, and so Bhishma rules the kingdom on behalf of them for many years, but when he comes of age, he's actually a fantastic soldier. He goes around Bharat and he conquers and he shows the place and grandeur and the power of Hastinapur, and everyone realizes what a great king he would be. So now these two sons, these two boys, Dhritarashtra and Pandu, come of age to be married. And so now Bhishma is thinking about getting these two boys married. So for Dhritarashtra, he thinks of the princess called Gandhari from the kingdom Gandhar. And so they send a request saying, we would like your princess to marry our prince. Dhritarashtra, to be invited to be part of the Kuru dynasty is a great privilege, but Dhritarashtra is blind. So first the father of this princess is taken aback and he's not sure. But she is a noble, virtuous, wonderful woman. And she says, no, I don't have a problem. I'm getting married to him. I'm happy to get married to him. And in fact, she goes one step further and she says, because he cannot see, I am going to spend the rest of my life blindfolded. Because if he cannot enjoy with his sense of sight this world, I also don't want to enjoy it as his wife. So she sacrifices for the rest of her life her vision because her husband cannot see. She sacrifices seeing as well. Who will do that in today's day and age? You might have someone who says, I won't marry them because they're blind. Then one step further, okay, no problem, I will marry them even though they're blind. But who's going to say, because he cannot enjoy the world of color and form, I will deprive myself of it too. See the intensity of the vows that they used to take back in the day. Great woman or not? Great woman. Now, so these two children, so Dhritarashtra gets married to Gandhari. And she's brought to Hastinapur and the wedding is done in a grand way and all of that. Her brother, Gandhari's brother, Shakuni, does not like the fact that his sister was given to a blind king. And he holds a grudge in his heart about that, and that has its own ripple effects, which we will see in the coming days. But Pandu gets married to two princesses called Madri and Kunti. So Dhritarashtra marries Gandhari and Pandu marries Kunti and Madri. Now, who are these two characters? Madri is a princess without such a big backstory, so we don't need to go into that. But Kunti has a backstory. Actually, I'll tell you that story in a moment. Kunti happened to be the daughter of Vasudevji. No, sorry, sister of Vasudevji. I beg your pardon. She was the sister of Vasudevji, who was Bhagavan Krishna's father. Bhagavan Krishna's father and Kunti were brother-sister. But Vasudevji's cousin, Kunti Bhoj, did not have any children. And he loved Kunti. So Kunti was brought up by Kunti Bhoj, by the cousin, out of love of the father, saying, you don't have any children here. She's like your daughter also. And so Kunti was brought up by Kunti Bhoj, and therefore she got the name Kunti, even though she's the daughter of, what's his name? Shurasen was the name of the father of Vasudev and Kunti. Okay, so now Kunti is the Bua of Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Just keep that in mind. They're actually related. Okay, so now Pandu gets married to Kunti and Madri, and everything is wonderful, and he's going and he's conquering new lands, and everyone knows what a great prince he is and what a great king he's going to be. And so another thing that he likes is hunting. He loves to hunt. And so at every opportunity, he would go and do a lot of work, and then he would take a break and relax and go to the forest and enjoy hunting. And so he would take his 2 wives with him, and they would go and have recreation time in the forest. One day when he was in the forest, he saw 2 deer mating. And the hunter in him couldn't control and took out the bow and arrow, and he shot that deer. But there is a law. There are laws in hunting also. Like, you cannot kill somebody who is asleep. And you cannot kill somebody who is engaged in the act of mating also. Any being, not just a human being, any being. And so he kills this deer. And when the arrow hits the deer, he hears a human voice. Actually, that deer was a rishi who was mating with his wife. And that rishi curses Pandu, and he says, you belong to such a noble family, and you have violated a simple law of hunting. Because of this, I curse you that the next time that you embrace your wife, you will die that instant. So Pandu is taken aback. And he knows, nowadays if somebody comes and says, I curse you, your hair is going to turn white if you get angry, you'll say yes, whatever, and then you'll move on in life, right? But in those days they knew that if someone curses you, it is real. It's not some imaginary, might happen, might not happen. He knew it was real. And so he said, well, I have made a mistake, and it is time for me to do prayashchitta karma. It is time for me to atone for the mistake that I have made. And so he goes to his 2 wives, Kunti and Madri, beautiful 2 wives, and he tells them what happened. And he tells them, so I have decided to renounce the kingdom, and I have decided to spend the rest of my life seeking the kind of peace that the rishis get here in the forest. So I'm going to live here in the forest. So now he renounces the throne, he renounces palace life, and he decides to stay in the forest. So his wives decide to stay with him. And so they take off all their jewelry, and they send it with a messenger who has to go back now to Hastinapur and deliver this message to Bhishma and Satyavati. Imagine Bhishma's plight. Bhishma was just thinking, finally, everything is set. And again, Hastinapur is left without an heir, and Bhishma is left in charge to keep the kingdom going. Look at his karma. He was supposed to be king. And he is actually ruling from the time that his father died, but without the name king. The burden of the kingdom rested on his shoulders, and his whole life was one of sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice. Anyways, he couldn't do anything because Pandu had made up his mind, and Pandu was living now in the forest, and Dhritarashtra was living in the kingdom, and Dhritarashtra was temporarily sitting on the throne because somebody needed to sit on the throne, right? Then what happened? Well, you know how it goes. Pandu had decided to give up everything in the world. But there is a desire that comes in a person's life that is even stronger than the desire for sense enjoyment sometimes. And that is a desire for children. And so Pandu was thinking and lamenting one day, you know, I don't have any children. This makes me so sad. And hearing this, Kunti Ma tells him, I might have a solution for you. I might have a solution for you. What that solution is, we will have to see tomorrow though. Because that is a whole story on its own, and it leads to, well, now tomorrow we're going to see the birth of the Pandavas, and we're going to see the birth of the Kauravas. Duryodhana is going to be born, Yudhishthira and all are going to be born. How is it that Pandu gets 5 sons, even though he cannot embrace his wives? The big question mark there. So anyways, we'll see how that set of events unfolds. But you think about the power of karma in the way that it has played out in Bhishma's life so far. You know, since this story has started, like I said, Bhishma is the one who's taking care of the throne. And our Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda said one time that actually the true hero of the Mahabharata is Bhishma. You see the life that Bhishma lives and the sacrifices that he has to make, and what happens at every step that something happens in the family. And that is why, you know, when you go to Bhagavad Gita and you see Arjuna saying, but how can I kill my Bhishma Pitamaha? It's just a word in the Bhagavad Gita until you come to the Mahabharata and you actually meet this character. When you start to think about his life, you feel for Arjuna. You really feel, Arjuna, you're right. How can you do that to him after everything he's done? After everything he's gone through? And the force of Arjuna's words is just completely different at that time. So you see how it unfolds and how it continues, right? But Bhishma never sought any pleasure for himself. From the time that he took that vow, his whole life was one of sacrifice. And that is why in the Bhagavatam, there's a section where Bhishma comes in that section in Mahabharata is talked about. Bhishma says before he dies that my buddhi and my mind, which have been purified by selfless living, Bhagavan, I absorb that buddhi, that mind in you. Who can say that with such confidence? I have purified my mind by selfless living, and that pure mind I now absorb in you, Bhagavan. Such was the wonderful life that Bhishma lived. I'll tell you one last thing about him and then we'll end. You know, whenever Bhishma had any doubt, he used to go to the banks of Ganga. And Ganga Maya had promised him that whenever you need me, you think about me and I will come. Because he had spent 16 years of his life with her, and then suddenly she left him with his father and she went back and disappeared, right? And she said, whenever you have any doubt, you just think about me and I will come. And so it is said that whenever he had questions or he didn't know what to do, he would go to the banks of Ganga and he would think about his mother, Ganga Maya. And one time he did that. She said, you know, this is the last time. Now you have to live your own life. You can't keep calling me and asking me to make your decisions for you. Means you have to think about the situations that come to you and make your own decision. And that teaches us that, you know, ultimately, we have to live our own life. This is a very important lesson for all of us. No one can live somebody else's life for them. You can, for a period, help somebody, But in the final analysis, everyone must live their own life. You can't live somebody else's life, and someone else cannot live your life. We can help each other. Helping is there. Serving is there, but we cannot live somebody else's life. And so Ganga Maya tells him, it is now time for you to become independent. This is our great Bhishma. If you think there has been drama so far, the drama has not even started yet. So we will see tomorrow the birth of these Kuru princes, and then we will see the drama start to unfold. So tomorrow we will be at Tushin Radha Krishna Mandir. Please do join us. I will tell you, it is exactly 4.5 minutes from here. I know because I'm just coming from there. So please do join us if you can. It is a really, really wonderful section of the story that is coming up with so many profound implications for our life. It will be wonderful to see whoever can join us at Tushin Radha Krishna Mandir tomorrow. That's Pandit Krishna's Mandir right here, right? A very special thank you to all the execs of this mandir for hosting and organizing this program, and to everybody who came here. It was so nice to be in satsang with all of you this evening. Actually, this is what we do at Chinmay Mission. We teach, we take the scriptures, we think about them, we share reflections on them, and I hope that you are also starting to see a little bit of the beauty of this wonderful itihasa called Mahabharata. If this is the kind of thing you're interested in, well, you can keep up. All the nights are here on West Coast and East Bank Essequibo, so you can come to whichever ones you're able to, and if you can't come, you're welcome to join online. Apart from this, Yagmi at Chinmay Mission here in Guyana, we have classes going on. We teach classes not just at the ashram in Monrepo, we also offer them online. Anyone who wants to study Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, anyone who wants to study anything in Sanatana Dharma at any age, at Chinmay Mission, that is our specialty. Chinmay Mission is a teaching organization, and we teach anything in Sanatana Dharma. Right now, we're halfway through a Pandit course, and Omkar here is part of the course also. You please meet him. The Pandit course, he's not going to be an online Pandit, even though the course is online. There will be an in-person component, but the focus of the course is to make sure that the next generation of Pandits that are in this course learn to chant perfectly. There's something called mantra shuddhi in puja, that the mantras should be chanted with perfection in pronunciation and intonation where applicable. So this is a program that's going on. In a few months, we will have a few Pandits who will graduate from that course. It is not easy. If you cannot come to 2 classes a day, every single day, Monday to Friday, and you can't keep up with learning the mantras and passing the tests and learning Sanskrit, then you can't finish it. But yeah, Pandit course is going on. Sanskrit classes if anyone wants to learn. And I must mention also, if anyone wants to study this Sanatana Dharma systematically, as it was taught in Gurukul days in the past, Chinmay Mission offers, for those who are 30 years and under, or around the 30-year age, who are unmarried and who are interested in this course with a university degree or similar, Chinmay Mission offers a 2-year course where you study systematically all the Shastras in Vedanta, as that fit in a 2-year period. You study Ramayana, you study Vedic chanting, you do meditation, you learn a basic puja, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads. If you know anyone who may be interested in this kind of thing, the course is starting on October 2nd right here in Trinidad with our Swami Prakashanandaji. It is a wonderful opportunity for those interested in this to study. And then Guyana will have more teachers who can teach Sanatana Dharma as it was meant to be taught. Right? So if you know anyone, you please let them know. That is the training that we did. And if anyone would like to do this kind of work, that is the training that is offered in Chinmay Mission. Okay, I'll stop here and we will do Bhagavad Gita Aarti now. Bhagavad Gita actually comes in the middle of the Mahabharata. And so when we do Aarti for Bhagavad Gita, we are doing Aarti to Mahabharata also at the same time. So please join me in Bhagavad Gita Aarti. Someone can...
Let's understand and join Jinaji in Aarti Bhagavad Gita.
जय भगवद गीते मैया जय भगवद गीते हरि किया Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu, Mangalam Garudaಧ್ವಜ, Mangalam Pundarikaksham, Mangalayatano Harihi, Tvameva Mata Jagata Khareva, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva, Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. मुच्यते. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagavan ki Jai. Shri Sakranath Maharaj ki Jai. Har Har Namah Parvati Pataye. Har Har Mahadev. Hari Om Tat Sat. I must mention a very special thank you to our Pandit Krishna, who has been instrumental in the work that we are doing here on the West Coast and in helping to organize this yajna. He's a real leader in this community, and we're so grateful to know him. You're all very lucky to have him right around here.